So what I'm saying is, in order to overcome certain dilemmas, there should be some codes which were pre-written so that people will follow them regularly. That is called Code of Civil Services, 1964. However, the most important thing is any code or any law cannot be exhaustive. Exhaustive means it will not be all encompassing. There might be many unsaid rules, right? Code might be in one thing, but it might have left some other things. For that, the civil servant should be well aware about how to use them. Unwritten norms will be there, unwritten practices will be there, which a civil servant must observe. Right? The ultimate happiness of the king, ultimate happiness of the civil servants does not lie in his personal happiness. It lies in the subjects alone, right? Happiness of the subjects, as said by Kautilya. Hence, whether it is a code of conduct, whether it is code of ethics, whether it is conscience, everything will work only for one purpose in civil services, that is the summum bonum of the poor, right? Ultimate happiness of the people. Next, for example, this when I prepared these notes, that was the current affairs. Prime Minister visited a place, an IAS officer went to receive him wearing spectacles. If you do remember, way back in 2017, that was in news. Wearing spectacles, Prime Minister came to visit him, and this IAS officer he went with some goggles, right? And many people said that that is not a right way of receiving the Prime Minister. You should have taken that goggles out, and you should have shown the dignity of office. Now, Code of Civil Services, there was this debate whether this civil servant has done a correct thing or not, because Code of Civil Services says or doesn't speak anything about spectacles or how you should receive the Prime Minister, how should be your attire, or whether you should be wearing the goggles or not. But even though Civil Service CCS codes does not prescribe it, it should not be done, because when a civil servant is in public, he has the obligation to uphold the dignity of office. He is not just going and receiving Prime Minister Modi as his friend or as his companion. He is representing his office, right? He is not a single person who is going there. He is representing the office that he is holding. Hence, he should have upholded the dignity of the office. That is what the thing is, right? So you can write some recent examples. Don't write old examples. That is why I am skipping the examples. So the thing is, you should lead the people with example. For example, again, there was one more example at that point of time. There are uncommon deaths in the last 2 years. That is in 2015, 16, and 17. There were some uncommon deaths in IPS Academy and IFS Academy. They went to some pool parties, and they were, after drinking, they uh, they jumped into the swimming pool and they were dead, right? These trainees. Now, this is something, no one is prescribing that you should not drink this much or that much, but you have to behave properly because you should lead the people with example. That is why this example is important, right? So you are a civil servant means the thing that you have to remember is you are a public figure. You do not have the so-called private authority to that extent that a regular private person will have. So your lives are publicized, means you will be in the public sphere. That's it. So the point is there are certain things which cannot be codified. The word civil servant nurtured, should be nurtured. You have to nurture your thoughts carefully, right? Your dress, your expression, your personality should be perfectly balanced, even for the things which you have not codified. This is the thing. Why you have to do all these things? Because you are having the power, you have the great responsibility. That is why with great power comes great responsibility. Now, the first thing is a civil servant should not do anything which is unbecoming of a government servant. Look at the term unbecoming of a public servant. You should not do anything which is unbecoming of a public servant or government servant. For example, it is unbecoming of a government servant to expect something for the service he has done. For example, it is unbecoming. I have written some examples for this unbecoming of government servant. It is unbecoming on the part of government servant if he uses his tongue very loosely, right? If he uses his public position for private gains, right? So language, dressing, culture, food habits, dignity, humility, humbleness, these are the things that you should have. You can write any number of things. Now, that is the first thing that I said. What is the first thing? You should not do anything that is unbecoming of civil servant. Remember that. And the second thing is, a civil servant should always maintain absolute integrity. That is called highest form of commitment to duty is called absolute integrity. What is the meaning of absolute integrity? Highest form of commitment. Now there are two things here: absolute integrity, intellectual integrity. What is intellectual integrity? Even in our thoughts and perceptions, we should be committed towards duty. Even our thoughts has to be that high that you are committed in your intellectual sphere also. In your thoughts also, you are so committed that I won't do anything which is unbecoming of a civil servant. For example, a civil servant is not going to get a lottery, he gets salary. So don't go and indulge in those activities, right? So it is something which comes from your thoughts itself. So this is some example. Sometimes a civil servant may get into a doubt whether being honest, he might think he has certain family obligations, then he might incline towards nepotism, wrong path. So ఇటువంటి circumstance లో కూడా నా ఫ్యామిలీ ఆబ్లిగేషన్స్ ఉన్నాయి, my wife is forcing me to get more money, right? She wants some diamond necklace. Then you cannot go and you cannot show that nepotism towards a wrong path. Rather, you should show that intellectual integrity. Once you show that intellectual integrity, you are going to be absolutely integral, right? So intellectual integrity means highest form. Even in our thoughts, we will be integral. As a result, that turns out to be absolutely integral. Hence, the second point for a civil servant is he should focus, or he should be absolutely integral, at which encompasses the intellectual integrity. This is some case study. Leave it. Here I have written one more thing, that is, a civil servant must be open-minded. We must work on it even though your own conception says it is different. You have to be open-minded, right? Even though if you are not agreeing with your opinion, with others' opinion, be open-minded, right? Accept the others' views. This is the another point that a civil servant should hold, right? And this is some case studies on that. Now, next point. As per CSS rules, you are not allowed to take any costly gifts or pleasantries. Particularly, you should not accept anything in the world which is coming for free. Accepting anything other than legal remuneration for the official duty performed is called corruption. Remember, what is the basic definition of corruption? Accepting anything other than the legal remuneration. Accepting anything other than the legal remuneration for the official duty performed is called corruption. By her this best definition for corruption: accepting anything other than legal remuneration for the official duty performed is called corruption. If you are accepting gifts and pleasantries, it comes under corruption under CSS rules, right? It morally also is a wrong thing. Not only your CSS rules, morally also it is just unethically becoming rich. So legally CSS, so morally it is wrong. Legally also it is against CSS rules. It is also against one more law that is called Prevention of Corruption Act. So this accepting something gifts and pleasantries, it is something which is very, very not, which is unbecoming of civil servant. A civil servant and its family members are expected to follow simplicity in society. Minimizing the expenditure is far better than in minimizing the credibility, right? If your wife asks diamond necklace, then ask her to minimize that expenditure rather than going and getting the entire credibility of the family to get minimized, right? So this is the thing. So you can write this: minimizing the expenditure is far better than minimizing the credibility. So don't accept any pleasantries, don't accept any gifts, because it amounts to corruption, which is against CSS rules, which is also against the Prevention of Corruption Act 98. Now, see this next point. Another rule is every government servant holding government post shall show absolute integrity and integrity of all for government servants for time being under his control or authority. What does this mean? If you are a superior, you should not only be individually integral, but your subordinates has to be integral. This is your duty for ensuring that not only you are integral, but your office is in integral line, right? So this is another function that you have and CSS rules. The government servant in performance of his official duty shall exercise the powers conferred on him in his best judgment. Again, directly taken from CSS rules. Whenever you are performing your duty, you exercise your powers by using your rationality. This is called objectivity in decision making, right? This is what they are saying. Your best judgment should be given importance, not what others say, what others feel, right? Okay. The direction of official superior shall ordinarily being in writing. What does this mean? Look at this. Whatever the decision you take, you will be responsible for the authority. Now, if someone is saying, go and do this, you cannot go and do this and say that, sir, that fellow has said me to do, that is why I did it. No. If some superior is ordering you to do, you should ask them in writing. The directions of the official superior shall ordinarily be in writing. Oral direction of subordinates should be avoided. You are understanding? Phone if your boss is telling you, go there, do something, you should ask in writing. This is the thing, because it is not your boss who is going to be in trouble tomorrow, it is you. So whatever you want to do, it has to be in writing. Oral directions to subordinates shall be avoided. Not only you should ask in writing, even when you are in the office, you should say to your subordinates in writing itself. You should not ask your subordinates, go and get chai, I'll drink it. You write and send it to that. So that your subordinate, when tomorrow when he is claiming the amount, he says that sir has taken this amount, so you pay me. So this is another thing. Decision should be taken in objectivity, and oral decision should not be done. Rather, the communication has to be in writing. Next one. A government servant who habitually failed to perform the task assigned to him within the time set for the task, the quality of performance expected from him shall be deemed to be lacking in devotion to duty. What is called lacking of devotion in duty as per CSS rules? If you are failing to perform the given task within the time set, right? Within the time, if you are not able to reach your targets, then you are deemed to be failing in your duty as per CSS rules. Now, this is some case study, leave it. Why? Again, this one. A government servant should not adapt delays or tactics, launches, and carelessness. So don't delay the things. If you want to do it immediately. Otherwise, again, the same procedure. Next process, government servants shall not indulge in any acts of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Again, I said, you are a public figure now. You cannot yourself indulge in sexual harassment of other genders. If you are a man, you cannot sexually indulge the other women, right? If you are a woman, you cannot indulge in sexual harassment of men, right? This is one thing which is seriously prohibited under government servants, for government servants, not only for common men. Now, sections of IPC. See, as an IPS officer, as a police service, custodial rapes, how to avoid that. Now you can write these things, right? Government servants, if something is happening, custodial deaths, custodial rapes, then it is against CSS rules. These are again some examples of polity, right? For just writing some answers, I have written here. No need to go through that. What are these? I hope you know this. Vishaka guidelines to prevent sexual harassment at workplace. And recent examples, the examples of around 2016 and 17, Tehalka case, Justice Ganguly, Rajendra Pachuri, sexual harassment of achievers, how to deal with it, right? This again, this is something which is called impartiality, right? CSS rule says that you have to be impartial. Government servants shall not use his or her position for, or he or she should not indulge directly to secure employment for any family member, right? You should not give employment to your family servants, family people. Government servants shall not be a member or shall not associate with any political party, non-partisanship. You should be apolitical in your decision making, right? This is the thing. Again, this is one case study related to that. Government servant, next, as per CSS rules, government servants shall not join or continue to be a member of association whose objectives are against the country. If some speech is going on, if some hate speech is going on against the country, you should not go and take part in that hate speech, right? You are prohibited to join something in associations which are doing some anti-national activities. I said, because you are not a employee of the government, you are the employer itself, right? That is the reason. So you should not indulge in that. So whenever you are taking, now look at this, CSS rules are clearly saying that don't go against public morality, don't go against public order. Now if something is there, say for example, if some crime is happening, if someone is throwing stones, right, you should never go with soft hands there. Whenever you are writing answer about that, you should be favoring the government, you should be seeing national interest as your topmost priority. So don't be too much naive, write something which is very realistic. If you become officer, go with strong, if you want to have UAPA, have that UAPA and arrest the people if they are acting against the national interest, because for you it is the national interest which is going to be the absolute thing, because CSS rules defines it. So have your understanding that. So be a hardcore realist here, don't be somewhat too much ethical, rather go with the principles, right? Principles of civil services. Government servants shall not engage in any strike or demonstrating affecting the public interest. Don't go and do strikes, right? You are not allowed to do strikes. Government is not paying money, I'll go on strike for 10 days or 15 days. You should not do that, right? So if the case study involves that, if you have serious objection with the government, what will you do, right? You have to resolve the dispute within the organization itself. You should not come outside to the press, and you should not make a meeting just like the movie artists association does every week, right? You should not do like that, because you are a civil servant and not a hero or a heroine of Tollywood, right? That is the thing. Now see, in one case that is called Rangarajan versus State of Tamil Nadu, government Supreme Court clearly said that you cannot go, civil servants cannot go on strikes because they are not employers. They are not employees, they are employers. Hence, you are not, an employer will not go onto the strikes, right? Civil servant, this case clearly said it. And it also said that this, in the case itself, it said that right to strike is not a fundamental right. Okay, when government asks to come back, you should go back to work, right? That is the thing. Now look at this. Government servant shall not write anything against the government or in any media. What does this mean? You cannot carve for to become public image, right? I'll go in front of the press, I'll speak. No, you should not go in front of the media. If you are writing a book or participating in public media, make it clear that the organization, the views expressed by him or her is personal and not related to government. Look at this. You might have seen some articles which are in the Hindu written by some civil servants. Observe it. Those who are writing, say MK Narayan, they will clearly define that the views are personal. It doesn't have anything to do with the government, right? So if you are writing something in the newspaper, right, your views has to be very clear that they are your views, not government views. What does this mean? You should be strictly away from the public, press. So that is the thing. Until and unless the situation demands, don't go before the media. Now look at this. Breach of trust should not be made by officers. Sub judice, when it is decided by court, you won't be expected to speak, right? People will be saying this matter is sub judice matter, sub judice matter. What do that mean? If the matter is in court, you cannot go and discuss. As a civil servant, you cannot go and discuss about it, or you should not break the trust made by the yourself, right? You should not break the trust of the office. After coming out of the government office, you should not speak against the government. That is also a part of this. You should not divulge classical information. You cannot become Snowden's, Edward Snowden's. No, what Snowden did, he is not a government employee. That is completely fine. If you are becoming Snowden's, Edward Snowden's, then that is going to be a big problem, because you should not divulge the secret information of the government. However, the worst is, but still you should maintain the ethos of the government, right? So if there is a case study, like something is seriously happening which might be causing a great trouble, right? Then what are the options that are available to you? I'll go to the media, I will leak this classical information. No, these type of things you should not write. You should not do that. The reason is this is under CSS rules. Government servants shall avoid lavish hospitality from any individual or objectivity firm having official dealings with him. What does this mean? If you are going to some parties or if you are going to some official visits, don't accept lavish hospitalities, right? You are still representing the government, so don't accept their hospitality at the lavish things, right? Be a normal person, be as simple as possible. That is the thing. And occasions such as weddings, anniversary, government servants may accept gifts from his relatives or friends, but he has to report expensive gifts to government. Now this was the case study which was asked again previously. One person, a local mafia king or don, will come to your marriage or to your daughter's marriage, and then he will accept or he will give you some great gifts. Whether to accept it or not, you can accept, but immediately come and report it to the government. That is most important, right? Government servants shall not give or take dowry, right? Okay, many people do this in practical life, but on the answer sheet, you are not allowed to write it. Okay, that is the thing. Now look at this. Not only taking, giving is also crime. Don't think that women after becoming officers, if you are giving dowry, that is also a crime. Okay, not only men who is taking it. Government servants should not sublet the government accommodation. Government నాకు రూమ్ ఇచ్చింది కదా అనేసి I should not give that to rent. Okay, 4 rooms ఇచ్చింది, why can't I let it to someone? No, you cannot sublet your premises to some people who are outside, to your friends, right? These people, they are studying in Ashok Nagar, please come to my office, you can stay, you can accommodate here. No, you cannot do that type of things. A government servant can make occasional investment but should not regularly invest in stocks and share market. You are prohibited to enter into stock market. Okay. Obviously, you are not indulged. You should not indulge in bigamy, right? Government shall not use intoxicated drinks during the course of his duty, even in his private life. He should not use this in excess. So whenever you are in duty, right, you should not take this drink, right? Even in your private life, you should drink within limits. If you are having that habit, that is completely fine. But when you are in duty, you should not use it, drink it. Government servant shall not apply any child or shall not appoint any child to work within under the age of 14 years, right? These are CSS norms that you have to remember. So why I have said this, while writing answers in case studies, if you are given the role of a civil servant, what are the things? This is the summary of that. This is the points that I have written again here. Uphold the dignity of the office, because you are no more an employee, you are the employer itself, right? Maintain the intellectual and absolute integrity. Intellectual integrity is even in your thoughts, you have to be integral. Again, that becomes a subset of your absolute integrity. Next one is you have to be open to diverse opinions, though they are contrary to your opinions. Not allowed to take any costly gifts or pleasantries, right? Because that amounts to corruption and it is against CSS and again PCA, Prevention of Corruption Act, right? Integrity, you should maintain not only your integrity but ensure that the subordinates are also being integral. And one more point is you should ask for the written directives from your sub seniors. Whenever you are ordering your subordinates, you should give the orders in written format. Oral way of communication is mostly prohibited under CSS norms. You should not indulge in any sexual harassment, or you should not engage with any political party, or you should not do strikes. You cannot become Snowdens, no dowries, no bigamies, right? These are the code of conduct for civil services 1964. Whenever you are writing an answer on case studies, you use these things. As per civil servants, I cannot do this, right? You can, if your daughter's marriage or if your son's marriage is there, then you can accept the gifts. But the thing is, you should immediately report it to the authorities. That is one more important thing. So these are the code of conduct. Now I said one thing. What I said is why certain rules are codified, right? Because there is always a dilemma whether it is law which should be we follow or whether it is morality that we should follow. In order to overcome this dilemma, you have certain rules which are codified, and that rules for civil servants is called code of civil servants. And now this is for civil services, for UPSC aspirants. Now after becoming say for example, if you are joining some private institution, you will have certain code of conduct there also of that organization, right? So that is another thing. But for civil services, this is the thing. I said laws and morals are at times contradictory. Hence, there should be some rules which should be codified. That is why code of conduct or code of conduct for civil services. Code of ethics is separate, code of conduct is separate. Code of conduct is something which you have to follow at any cost. Code of ethics, there is no directive that you have to follow. There is no stead and fast rule on the individual that you have to follow. Understand? Like you'll be seeing a person who is jumping from a big tower. That is legally okay. But if you are, that is not morally okay, right? If the person dies, that is not morally okay. So it is not enforceable. Code of conduct is enforceable. Code of ethics is not enforceable. Now, in order to overcome the dilemma between this, you have code of civil services, right? For this is only for government organization, but for particular organizations, they will have certain codes also. No need to study that course, because in the syllabus, you have only one thing called code of civil services, that is code of conduct for civil services, right? That is the thing. And the rest of the things I have already discussed about the positions of this. See, look at this. This is struck. Code of ethics and code of conduct. What is code of conduct? It is a professional statement to regulate one's actions. If you want to regulate your actions or civil services actions, that is a professional statement. Whereas code of ethics is a very wide concept based on the principle and not only an action, right? It is based on some moral principles, but here this is based on actions. Now, code of conduct says what you cannot do as a civil servant. Code of ethics says what should be done or which value should be given importance, right? This is like negative connotation, that is like positive connotation. Second ARC says ethics should be ensured in practice, and that is why code of ethics plays a crucial role in your code of conduct also. I hope you got the point. Code of conduct is standard principles which a civil servant should follow, whereas these are moral guidelines. Whether you follow or whether you don't follow, that is completely fine. But if you are breaking code of conduct, then you are liable for punishment. If you are breaking code of conduct, code of ethics, not liable for anything. Third thing is this one, right? They are negative in connotation. This should not be done. Whereas these are positive in connotation, just like your fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Fundamental rights are negative connotations, whereas directive principles of state policy are positive connotations to the government. Similarly, these are the things, right? Why this debate has come? Code of ethics and code of conduct. The debate has come because second ARC clearly defines that ethics should be ensured in practice. Why again second ARC said this? Second ARC said this because we just discussed whatever the code of civil services is there. This is not exhaustive. No code or no act can be exhaustive, right? In order to ensure those things which are not covered, for that you should have your ethics, code of ethics, right? That is why you have different topics, that is called code of conduct and code of ethics. Now, whenever there is ethics, which means you will be followed by your conscience in the rules which are silent, and wherever the rules are there, we will be following the rules. That is what it is given again, code of conduct and code of ethics. Code of conduct is more a professional statement to regulate civil services actions and behavior. To regulate actions and behavior of civil servant when you are performing your duty, you have code of conduct, right? For example, rule number 3 of code of civil services say every member of the service shall at all times maintain absolute integrity and devotion to duty and shall do nothing which is unbecoming of civil services. So this is one rule in civil services. I discussed some rules, right? I have already discussed this. So this is code of conduct. You should do it, or you shouldn't do anything which is unbecoming of civil servants. Why? Look at this. Why this is important? Civil servants speak on behalf of government, and his personal choices can never be spoken in public, because you are no more a public figure. If you are holding the office, you become, or you'll be representing the government through your face, right? Next, rule number 4 says it prohibits the members of civil service from using his position to influence or secure office for any members in his family, right? This is another rule. We discussed this. So you should not do. Look at this. You should not do this. You should not do this. So these are like negative connotations. You should not do. Whereas code of ethics says that yes, you have to do this. Tries to curb influence peddling, right? So don't go and interfere into the personal interest. Public versus private life is different. Understand that. Again, conflict of interest. So whenever you are writing answer on civil services rules, be specific, like rule 3, rule 4 says this, okay? And write those civil services. Rule 5 prohibits officers from associating with any political party or political movement, right? You have to maintain neutrality. So this is what this code of conduct is. I hope you understood what is code of conduct now. Code of conduct is something which is prohibiting the civil servant. It is like a moral compass, and it prohibits civil servant from doing things which is unbecoming of civil services. For example, rule 3, rule 4, rule 5, and remember all the rules that I discussed under CSS rules, right? If you are writing that, then that becomes code of conduct, and frame the answer in that way. Now look at this called code of conduct. Second ARC talks about code of ethics. Public administration is value based. activity, and therefore public servants should have deep moral and ethical moorings, means inclinations, right? You should have deep ethical moorings, deep ethical inclinations. That is why code of ethics is very important. While the central government has issued code of rules for government employees, that is, for civil servants, you have Central Service Rules, Central Civil Services Rules 1964. It does not lay down the values which the civil servant should follow. They are rules which was laid down, but values, no one has laid down the values, right? You are understanding? Ethics means values, code of conduct means rules. This is the rule that you have to follow. If you don't follow, then you are going to have this problem. Values are code of ethics, which civil servants should follow. The conduct rules are more in nature of do's and don'ts. The existing conduct rules are not adequate to deal with the cases of misconduct of public services, as they give numerous escape routes. Again, I have written the same concept, guys. Don't worry about this. What I have written is code of conduct is clearly saying what to do, what not to do. However, you cannot create an exhaustive list of code of ethics, code of conduct. Hence, you should have code of ethics. That is what I have written. See, the nature of rules, the code, the conduct rules means CSS rules, are more in nature of what to do and what not to do. They are not adequately, and they are not adequate because they give you many escape routes. I can find number of routes to escape from the rules. So it is the time to lay down. So they speak about code of ethics. Code of conduct is not sufficient because it is not inculcating values. So you come out with code of ethics. Code of ethics, as said by second ARC. Second ARC said that you inculcate code of ethics because code of conduct is not yet sufficient. So it is time to lay down a set of values and ethics to articulate the ideals envisaged of public services. So far there is no code of ethics that has written. So second ARC is saying you come out with certain code of ethics, just like you have come out with code of conduct for civil services. You also frame certain codes for ethics so that civil servants will be with that values. Now look at this. What is the first initiative of code of ethics? First initiative, they tried to get this code of ethics into the system. What is the first time in India that they introduced this? The Department of Administrative Reforms of Government have prepared a code of ethics for public services as a part of an action plan for an effective and responsive government. So under this report, they have given this. In a conference of CMs presided by the then Prime Minister in 1997, way back in 1997, they have come out with some code of ethics. The objectives of this code was to prescribe the standard of integrity and conduct in civil services. So they wanted to say what are the values that civil servants have to follow. But again, this report was not given that much importance, right? And the second report was introduced in 2006. Now they wanted to make it an act, right? So they introduced like a bill, Public Services Bill in 2006. In 2006, again, Department of Personnel and Training presented a draft of Public Service Bill of 2006. The main values, what does this bill contains? The main values by which a public servant shall be guided as proposed in the bill are allegiance to the Constitution and the law, abide by the Constitution and the law, which is in fundamental duties of every